Texas just handed retirees a $200,000 tax exemption, and almost nobody noticed. While everyone's been arguing about Austin being too expensive and Houston being too humid, a wave of retirees has been silently scooping up homes in small Texas towns where 3 bedrooms cost less than a parking space in Manhattan. Towns with rivers, vineyards, dark skies, and the kind of peace that a meditation app charges you $15 a month to pretend you have. One of these towns has won Best Historic Small Town in America 5 separate times. Another one has an Amtrak station, a university, and 0 big box stores. There's a village with 18 buildings on the National Register and somehow still no stoplight. And one place is so artsy that a single sculptor from New York accidentally made property values jump 254%. If this video doesn't get a like, I'm going to assume you enjoy overpaying for real estate. And that's a lifestyle choice I cannot support. Here are 12 Texas towns where retirees are quietly moving in 2026. Number 12. Comfort. If you drove through Comfort on Highway 87 without stopping, you'd think it was just another blink-and-miss-it hill country crossroads. A few old stone buildings, some live oaks, maybe a winery sign? You'd be wrong. This town of around 2,300 people has one of the most perfectly preserved historic downtowns in the entire state. We're talking roughly 100 buildings dating back to before 1910, many of them still standing with their original limestone facades along the banks of Cypress Creek. Comfort was founded in 1854 by a group of German intellectuals who called themselves Freethinkers. They were educated, secular, anti-slavery, and pro-union. In the middle of Texas, in the 1850s, which looking back was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. During the Civil War, a group of these freethinkers tried to flee to Mexico rather than fight for the Confederacy. Confederate soldiers caught them at the Nueces River and killed most of them. Today, a monument called the Trail der Union stands in the center of town. It was erected in 1866, making it the oldest Civil War monument in Texas and the only Union monument in any former Confederate state. Median home prices in Comfort sit around $376,000. It's not the cheapest on this list, but you're buying into a town with German heritage wineries, a walkable antique district, and a median age north of 50, which means your neighbors actually understand the concept of going to bed at a reasonable hour. The vibe here is slow in the best possible way. Saturday mornings mean coffee at a local cafe with a view of century-old stone buildings. Afternoons mean browsing antique shops where the owners actually know the provenance of what they're selling. Evenings mean wine from a vineyard that's 5 minutes down the road. There's no Applebee's, no drive-through car wash, no sense of urgency about anything. Kendall County as a whole is growing fast, especially nearby Bourne, which has exploded past 25,000 residents. But Comfort has managed to absorb growth without losing its character. If you're thinking about this one, sooner beats later, because the same forces pushing Bourne towards $600,000 medians are slowly creeping south on Highway 87. Number 11. Marble Falls. Sitting on the Colorado River about 50 miles northwest of Austin, Marble Falls is the kind of town that tricks you into thinking you're on vacation and then never lets you leave. The population hovers around 7,700. The lake is right there, the hill country views are absurd, and the downtown is walkable in a way that actually means something. Not the way real estate agents use the word walkable to describe a suburb with one sidewalk. Median home values range from around $286,000 on the lower end to north of $400,000, depending on your source and how close to the water you want to be. That's a spread, but the sweet spot for retirees tends to be the older neighborhoods between Main Street and the river, where you're getting charm without the lakefront premium. And no, I'm not making this up. There's a restaurant in Marble Falls called the Blue Bonnet Cafe that has been serving pie since 1929. Not since 2019. Since 1929. Almost 100 years of uninterrupted pie service. People drive an hour from Austin just for the meringue. That alone should tell you everything you need to know about the culture here. About 17% of residents are 65 or older, and that number climbs every year. Number 10. Alpine. Now we're going somewhere completely different. Alpine sits at 4,475 feet in the high desert of West Texas, surrounded by the kind of open sky that makes you feel like you're standing on another planet. Population is just under 6,000, and the town functions as the gateway to Big Bend National Park, which is basically the Grand Canyon's quieter, more dramatic cousin that nobody posts about on social media. Median home values here sit around $227,000, making Alpine one of the most affordable quality retirement picks in the entire state. Cost of living runs roughly 17% below the national average. You can buy a 3-bedroom ranch house with a view of the Davis Mountains for less than a studio apartment in Denver. The town has an Amtrak station, which is wild for a place this remote. The Sunset Limited stops here on its run between New Orleans and Los Angeles. Sul Ross State University gives retirees access to a library, recreational facilities, and continuing education courses, which means you can audit a geology class about the volcanic formations you can literally see from your kitchen window. Big Bend Regional Medical Center handles the healthcare basics, and McDonald Observatory, one of the premier dark sky observatories in North America, is less than an hour up the road. On a clear night, and most nights are clear out here, you can see the Milky Way in a way that city-dwelling retirees have only seen in photographs. The catch is the remoteness, and you need to be honest with yourself about that. The nearest Target or Costco is a 3-hour drive. If you need a specialty medical procedure, you're likely heading to Odessa, Midland, or El Paso. Grocery shopping requires planning. Internet can be spotty outside of town. For some retirees, every one of those facts is a deal breaker. For others, every one of those facts is the entire point. Alpine self-selects for people who want to genuinely disconnect, and the ones who choose it tend to love it with an intensity that borders on evangelical. Number 9. Rockport. If you want a Gulf Coast retirement without paying Gulf Coast premium prices, Rockport is the answer that keeps coming up. This town of around 11,000 people sits on Aransas Bay, about 30 miles north of Corpus Christi, and it has quietly become one of the most popular retirement destinations on the Texas coast. The beach here earned certification as a Blue Wave Beach from the Clean Beaches Coalition, making it the first Texas beach to receive that designation. That puts Rockport's sand and water quality in the same conversation as beaches in Hawaii and the Pacific Northwest, which is not something you'd expect to hear about the Texas Gulf Coast. Median home values sit around $312,000, with recent sales averaging closer to $400,000. D.R. Horton has been building new communities specifically targeting the retiree market, and the birding scene here is serious. Rockport sits along the migration path of the endangered whooping crane, and every winter the entire town essentially becomes a bird-watching festival. The elephant in the room is hurricanes. Hurricane Harvey made landfall directly in Rockport in August of 2017 as a Category 4 storm, and the town took the full hit. Buildings were destroyed, the historic downtown was gutted, and the recovery took years. The rebuild is now largely complete, and much of the new construction is built to modern hurricane codes, but insurance premiums reflect the geography. You're getting a beautiful coastal retirement at a fraction of what Florida or the Carolinas charge, but you're trading earthquake insurance for hurricane insurance, and your wind coverage alone might run you several $1,000s a year. For a lot of retirees cashing out of overheated California or Northeast markets, that trade-off still makes financial sense. A $300,000 home on the Texas coast versus an $800,000 home in coastal Florida is a $500,000 difference. Even with elevated insurance, the math works for decades, but walk in with your eyes open, have your hurricane plan ready, before you need it, and keep a go bag by the door from June through November. Number 8. Llano. This is the one that nobody talks about, and that's exactly why it's on this list. Llano sits about an hour and a half northwest of Austin, has a population of around 3,500, and calls itself the deer capital of Texas. Which sounds like a joke until deer season rolls around and the town's population temporarily doubles. Median home values are around $234,000. Cost of living sits roughly 18% below the national average. In Llano County, about 37% of residents are 65 or older, one of the highest senior concentrations in the entire state. This is already a retirement town. The retirees just got there before the real estate influencers did. Here's the detail that everyone missed about Llano. The town sits on a 1.5-billion-year-old granite dome, and it's the only place on Earth where a mineral called lanite is found. Lanite is a blue quartz granite that exists nowhere else on the planet. The town actually hosts a World Rock Stacking Championship. You're buying real estate on top of a geological anomaly, and the locals think that's perfectly normal. Cooper's Old Time Pit Barbecue and Inman's Kitchen handle the food situation. The Llano River runs right through town for kayaking and swimming. Enchanted Rock State Natural Area is a short drive south. And the historic Granite Courthouse Square in the center of town looks like it hasn't changed since the 1890s, because it basically hasn't. For pure affordability combined with genuine hill country character, Llano is hard to beat. Number 7. Bandera. About 40 miles northwest of San Antonio, Bandera has branded itself the cowboy capital of the world. And unlike most self-appointed titles, this one actually holds up. The town has a population of around 900 people, functioning dude ranches, PRCA rodeos, and a historic dance hall called Archie Blues Silver Dollar, where the floor is still covered in peanut shells, and the jukebox plays real country, not the pop stuff. Median home prices in Bandera range from around $334,000 at the county level to $377,000 in town. Cost of living sits at or slightly below the national average. And here's the demographic that tells the story. Roughly 32% of Bandera's residents are 65 or older. 1 in 3. The retirees didn't just discover this town, they essentially run it. Pay attention to this next detail because it explains everything about Bandera's personality. The town was settled in the 1850s largely by Polish Catholic immigrants, making it one of the oldest Polish settlements in the United States. Today, that Polish heritage coexists with cowboy culture, biker culture, and a growing retiree community in a combination that should not work on paper, but somehow produces one of the friendliest, most eccentric small towns in Texas. On any given Saturday night at Archie Blues Silver Dollar, you might see a 70-year-old retired accountant from Chicago two-stepping next to a guy in full leather motorcycle gear, next to a working ranch hand who's been riding horses since he could walk. And all three of them are having a great time. The Medina River runs through the area for kayaking and fishing. Several guest ranches still offer horseback trail rides through genuine working ranch land. And the hill country scenery in every direction is the kind of dramatic that makes you pull over your car just to take a photo you'll never post. San Antonio's full medical network, international airport, and big box shopping are all less than an hour south on Highway 16. That proximity to a major metro is Bandera's secret weapon. You get the full immersion cowboy town experience without ever being truly far from civilization. And the San Antonio Veterans Healthcare System is among the best in the country, which matters to the large population of retired military personnel who have settled here. If you're finding this list useful, and I hope you are because I researched every single one of these towns down to the geological composition of the bedrock, consider hitting subscribe. We cover places like this every week, and the next video on this channel might save you 6 figures on a home you didn't know existed. Number 6. Lockhart. 30 minutes south of Austin on Highway 183, Lockhart holds the official title of Barbecue Capital of Texas. Not self-proclaimed. Officially designated by the Texas legislature. The town is home to Black's Barbecue, Kreitz Market, and Smitty's Market, 3 legendary pitmasters operating within walking distance of each other. People fly in from other countries for the brisket. That's not an exaggeration. Population sits around 15,000 and growing at roughly 2% per year. The city projects its population could double by 2040, which means the current moment is the window before Lockhart stops being a secret. Median home prices hover around $280,000 to $300,000, with the cost of living index sitting about 6% below the national average. For a town 30 minutes from a major metro area, those numbers are almost absurdly low. 2 massive master-planned communities are under construction. Moxie and Blue Sky together will add roughly 3,600 new homes over the coming years, which signals that developers see the same thing retirees see. The 1894 Caldwell County Courthouse still anchors the town square. Lockhart State Park has a golf course and swimming pool, and the downtown has become a filming location for movies and TV shows thanks to its preserved historic buildings. That's the kind of number that makes accountants cry, by the way. $300,000 for a home in a town with world-class barbecue, a state park, and a 30-minute commute to Austin's medical district. For context, the median home in Austin proper is pushing well past $450,000. You're saving over $150,000 and gaining a better barbecue scene. That's not a trade-off, that's a cheat code. The retiree angle here is subtle but growing. Lockhart isn't marketing itself as a retirement destination the way Kerrville or Granbury do. It's just quietly offering everything retirees want: lower cost of living, a walkable historic downtown, proximity to world-class healthcare in Austin, and a community that hasn't been steamrolled by cookie-cutter development yet. The people moving here tend to be the ones who did the spreadsheet, compared 20 towns, and realized Lockhart quietly won on almost every metric. Something is going to give, and it's probably the price. Buy before the barbecue tourists figure out they should just live here. Number 5. Marfa. You could argue that Marfa shouldn't be on a retirement list at all. It has fewer than 3,000 residents. It's 3 hours from the nearest real city, and property values have been behaving in ways that defy all logic. But retirees keep showing up, especially the creative, artsy, I want my third act to mean something type. And once you understand why, it makes perfect sense. In 1979, a minimalist sculptor named Donald Judd moved to Marfa from New York City and started installing massive aluminum and concrete sculptures in abandoned military buildings. That one decision turned a dying cattle town into an international art destination. The Chinati Foundation now draws thousands of visitors a year. Galleries line the main street, and the Marfa lights, mysterious glowing orbs that appear in the desert at night, have been documented since the 1880s with no definitive scientific explanation. Median home values sit around $289,000 to $302,000, which sounds reasonable until you learn that residential property appraisals in Presidio County have jumped 254% since 2015. That's not a typo, by the way. The county's own chief appraiser has publicly said that locals can no longer afford to buy. Outside money, largely from New York and Los Angeles, has reshaped the market. So who's this for? Retirees with moderate wealth who want cultural richness, dark desert skies, high-altitude cool summers, and the kind of solitude that comes from living in a town where the nearest Walmart is 190 miles away. It's not for everyone. It's specifically for the kind of person who reads that last sentence and thinks, good. Number 4, Granbury. If you only remember one town from this entire video, make it Granbury. About 40 minutes southwest of Fort Worth on the shores of Lake Granbury, this town of roughly 13,000 people has won USA Today's Best Historic Small Town in America 5 times. 2019, 2020, 2021, 2025, and 2026. No other town in the country has done that. The 1891 limestone courthouse still stands in the center of the town square, surrounded by shops, restaurants, and the restored Granbury Opera House, which has been putting on live performances since the 1880s. Lake Granbury stretches for miles, offering boating, fishing, and waterfront dining. And about 30% of residents are 65 or older, which means the town is already built around retiree needs. Median home prices sit around $350,000, with cost of living running roughly 7 to 12% below the national average, depending on which index you trust. The city grew about 13% between 2020 and 2025, and over 50% since 2010, so the growth is real, but it hasn't overwhelmed the town's character yet. That's because Granbury has been fiercely protective of its historic downtown. You won't find a chain restaurant on the square. The shops, the galleries, the restaurants, they're all local, and the town seems determined to keep it that way. Lake Granbury itself stretches out for miles, offering boating, fishing, and waterfront dining with sunsets that look like they were designed by a committee specifically tasked with selling real estate. The Granbury Opera House regularly puts on musicals, comedies, and holiday shows, and it's become one of those community institutions that retirees build their social lives around. Lake Granbury Medical Center handles local healthcare, and Fort Worth's full hospital network, including Cook Children's and John Peter Smith, is 40 minutes up the road. For retirees who want small-town charm with genuine big-city access, this is the golden ratio. Rural enough to feel like an escape, connected enough that you never feel stranded. 5-time award winner for a reason. But this isn't just about Granbury anymore. What's happening here is a pattern playing out across a dozen similar towns, all benefiting from the same tax changes, the same remote work migration, and the same realization that small-town Texas offers a quality of life that major metros gave up decades ago. Number 3. Kerrville. Sitting on the Guadalupe River at around 1,600 feet of elevation in the Texas Hill Country, Kerrville is the town that retirement rankings keep putting on their lists, and for once the rankings are actually right. Population is around 25,300, roughly 28% of whom are 65 or older. The town has been absorbing retirees for decades, and unlike some of the smaller picks on this list, Kerrville has the infrastructure to handle it. Peterson Regional Medical Center provides solid local health care. The Kerrville River Trail runs over 6 miles along the Guadalupe. Louise Hayes Park offers pavilions, playgrounds, and river access. The Museum of Western Art sits on a hilltop overlooking the valley. And then there's the Kerrville Folk Festival, founded in 1972, which bills itself as the longest continuously running music festival in North America. The 2026 edition ran for 18 days straight, from late May through early June, drawing roughly 30,000 attendees to watch performances under the Hill Country stars. Median home listing prices in Kerrville reach up to around $474,000, but homes in town start in the low 200s, especially in established neighborhoods away from the river. That's a wide range, which actually works in a retiree's favor. You can buy into the premium waterfront market or find a comfortable 3-bedroom for well under $300,000. The elevation matters more than you'd think. At 1,600 feet, Kerrville escapes the worst of the brutal Texas summer heat. July highs typically run several degrees cooler than Austin or San Antonio, and the evenings actually cool down. For retirees coming from northern states who want warmth without feeling like they're living inside a toaster oven, that elevation difference is the selling point nobody mentions in the brochures. Number 2. Salado. Here's a town that breaks every rule of modern development, and somehow comes out better for it. Salado, population around 2,400, sits right off Interstate 35 about 50 miles north of Austin. It has 18 structures on the National Register of Historic Places. It has been ranked as the number 2 historic town in Texas. It has antique galleries, sculptor gardens, a thriving art scene, and a creek running through the center of town that looks like a Thomas Kincaid painting came to life. And it has no stoplight. Not few stoplights. 0. The town has actively resisted installing traffic signals and somehow manages to function perfectly without them. That detail alone tells you everything about Salado's approach to growth. Slow, deliberate, on their terms. Median home prices have ranged from around $345,000 to $473,000, depending on the month, which reflects the tiny number of transactions in a town this small. Median household income sits around $103,500, suggesting that the people moving here aren't scraping by. They're choosing Salado because they can afford to live anywhere, and they picked the quiet arts village with no stoplight. About 26% of residents are 65 or older. Baylor Scott and White, one of the largest healthcare systems in Texas, operates major hospital campuses in Temple, roughly 13 to 17 miles away, providing full surgical, cardiac, and emergency care without needing to drive to Austin. The I-35 corridor gives you access to Austin heading south and Waco heading north, both within about an hour. The art scene here punches absurdly above its weight for a town this size. Salado has working sculptors, painters, ceramicists, and glassblowers with studios open to the public. The annual Salado Art Fair draws collectors from across the state, and the village's galleries aren't the kind where everything costs $10,000 and nobody's allowed to touch anything. They're the kind where the artist is sitting in the corner, happy to explain their process, and you walk out with something original for a couple $100. The real draw is the deliberate pace. Salado doesn't want to be the next Georgetown or the next Bastrop. It doesn't want to add a target or widen the road or install a traffic signal. It wants to be Salado. And that philosophy, that stubborn refusal to chase growth for its own sake, is exactly what a certain kind of retiree is looking for. The kind who spent 40 years in a city that couldn't stop growing and wants to spend their next 40 in a town that chose not to. Number 1. New Braunfels. If every other town on this list is a whisper, New Braunfels is a full conversation. This is the largest town on our countdown at over 105,000 residents, and it has more than doubled in population since 2010. It sits directly between Austin and San Antonio on the Yes Right 35 corridor, which gives you access to 2 major cities, 2 international airports, and 2 full medical networks within 45 minutes in either direction. The German heritage runs deep here. New Braunfels was founded in 1845 by German immigrants, and the culture still shows up in everything from the architecture to the food to the annual Wurstfest celebration. Gruene Hall, located in the historic Gruene district on the north side of town, is the oldest continually operating dance hall in Texas, built in 1878. Willie Nelson, George Strait, and Garth Brooks have all played on that stage. The wooden floor still creaks under your boots, and the walls are covered in decades of concert posters. The Comal River and the Guadalupe River both run through town, and tubing on these crystal-clear spring-fed waterways is basically a civic obligation during the summer months. Londa Park offers 48 acres of green space, a spring-fed pool, a miniature train, and paddle boating. Schlitterbahn Water Park, one of the most famous in the country, is right here too. Median home prices sit around $330,000 to $359,000. And here's where it gets interesting for buyers. As of 2026, the new Braunfels housing market has over 11 months of inventory, which puts it firmly in buyer's market territory. That's unusual for a town growing this fast, and it means negotiating power that hasn't existed in this market for years. Sellers are competing for your attention, not the other way around. The Gruene district deserves its own mention. This is a preserved 19th century German settlement within New Braunfels that now functions as a walkable village of shops, restaurants, wine tasting rooms, and that famous dance hall. On a Friday evening, you can eat schnitzel at a German restaurant, walk across the street to watch a live country band at Gruene Hall, and then stroll home along tree-lined streets that smell like live oak and river water. Retirees who settle in the Gruene area often describe it as the moment they stopped feeling like they were retiring and started feeling like they were just living somewhere great. Healthcare infrastructure here is strong, with Christus Santa Rosa and Resolute Health Hospital both serving the area, plus the full medical networks of San Antonio just 30 minutes south. The HEB situation is excellent, with multiple full-size locations, and the restaurant scene has grown well beyond German food, with Vietnamese, Mexican, barbecue, and farm-to-table options all within the city limits. For retirees who want the small-town Texas experience without actually giving up big city convenience, New Braunfels is the compromise that doesn't feel like a compromise. It's the biggest town on this list, the most amenity-rich, and right now, one of the best buyer's markets you'll find in any growing Texas community. And that's the list. 12 towns where retirees are quietly reshaping the map of Texas in 2026. The real question isn't which town is the best. It's which one matches the retirement you actually want to live, not the one that looks good on a Pinterest board. Some of you want the 4,000-foot desert silence of Alpine. Some of you want the Saturday night dance hall energy of New Braunfels. Some of you want to live on a 1.5 billion-year-old granite dome in Llano and explain Ellenite to everyone who visits. All of those are correct answers. Texas made the tax math work. These towns made the lifestyle work. The only question left is whether you're going to keep watching videos about retirement or actually start planning one. If you've been here since the beginning, you already know this channel is the place to find these kinds of hidden gems. Subscribe if you haven't, because next week's video is going to make you rethink a state you've probably been ignoring. I'll see you there.